Hmm. Hey, y'all. Today, N is for Naomi. She can be found in the book of Ruth, and her relationship with Ruth is they're intertwined. So I'll be mentioning Ruth quite a bit also. Naomi is married to Elimelech, and they have two sons. They're pretty well off in Israel, and then the famine strikes. And Elimelech, he brings Naomi and his two sons to Moab. Now, this is huge, and I'm sure Naomi probably did not want to go. If you think about it, Moab, a country of pagans, you weren't even supposed to talk to pagans, much less intermingle with them and work with them. But anyway, he takes them away from Bethlehem, which means house of bread, by the way, to Moab, which means nothingness and waste. Probably not a good decision on his part. But Naomi, faithful wife, she goes. What's she going to do, right? She leaves with him. And fast forward 10 years, the two sons had married Moabite women, and all three men are dead now. So the father dies first, then the two sons die. We don't know why. So we have three widows that are trying to stay alive, trying to eat in a very, very man's world. And back then, widows they were left to perish. If they didn't have family redeemers, if they didn't have somebody they could rely on to take care of them, they would slowly starve and this type of thing. But Naomi hears that God has blessed Israel again, and so she releases her two daughter-in-laws from their duty to her, and she says, y'all stay here, y'all are young, y'all can still have a family, but I got to go back home. And she knows that they wouldn't be well received in Jerusalem and Bethlehem because they're Moabites. And so Orpah goes home to mama. She just kisses her and says, goodbye. Thank you, thank you, thank you. But we never hear from Orpah again. Never mentioned again. Just a little tidbit. Now, Ruth loves Naomi. And Ruth knows that Naomi can't make this journey alone. And if she does make it, how is she going to live once she gets there? So Ruth's determined. She's saying, your people will be my people and your God will be my God. And these two women make the journey together. Now, when they get there, everybody recognizes Naomi. Can this be Naomi? And she says, don't call me Naomi, call me Mara, because I'm bitter. She's full of bitterness, and Mara means bitter. Naomi means pleasant. So she goes from pleasant, having a good life, to bitterness. She's full of bitterness, and she thinks God has deserted her. But she's got a loyal companion in Ruth, and Ruth goes to glean out in the fields. Now, gleaning means that's their welfare system in the day. The large landowners, when they had harvest, they would make sure the harvesters dropped a little extra. And so poor people and widows were allowed to go and collect what they could behind the harvesters. And that was called gleaning. And that fed a lot of people that otherwise wouldn't have eaten. So Ruth would be out there hours and hours and hours. And finally, the landowner took notice of her. Now, the landowner is Boaz. And this is no coincidence that she went to glean in the field owned by Boaz, because Boaz is a redeemer to the family. So, in other words, he was a relative to Elimelech. And he can marry the widow and take care of the family. And this is what happens. They fall in love. Now, and as time goes on, Naomi's so excited about this because she always loved Boaz he was always a good kid. She knew him as a kid, and she's back with her people, and she's feeling better, and she's got a wonderful daughter-in-law in Ruth, who treats her better than 7 sons. Everybody thinks Ruth is great the way she treats Naomi. And so Ruth and Boaz get married, and they have a son called Obed. Obed has a son called Jesse, and Jesse has a son called David, as in King David. And we all know that Jesus comes from the line of King David. So you have this Moabite woman who had to get to Israel and marry Boaz. He's got an interesting past too. I mean, his mother was a prostitute. So he was mentally ready for somebody that kind of didn't, unconventional person, because he was raised by an unconventional person. But he's a good man. So these two had to get together. And I think this is what Naomi's, what she was called to do was get Ruth to Israel. And not only that, but to show us that when you are full of bitterness, you just think your situation can't get any worse, and you think God has left you. The truth is more likely that you have left God. You traveled to waste. You went mentally to nothingness. So keep praying and know that God doesn't desert you. Naomi, she helped raise Obed. She had a wonderful life with Ruth and Boaz, and that bitterness did leave her, and she felt blessed again. So N is for Naomi. Have a wonderful, wonderful day, and blessings to you. Elimelech, Amaleki, Elimeleki, Elvis. It's Melchizedek. Elimelech. Hey, y'all. Today,